All right, welcome back to our remote production course, and we're going over IP video fundamentals, really getting to dig in to use this tech and take a look. So let's jump in. Now, we recently recorded a video that I think had a lot of impact, and what we did is we took a IP PTZ camera. We took it out of the box. Literally, this all happened in one live stream. There's a countdown timer because we were wondering how long it would take. But we literally took a camera, plugged it into the network, okay, and connected to it with a web browser. And we did this all in less than 5 minutes. But I just want to go through this. I went to a web browser. I literally... with PTZOptics cameras, you can just type in PTZOptics.local. You don't even need to know the IP address of the device. I logged into it and had control of it in less than 2 minutes. Okay, so this is what IP allows us to do. So I connected to it. I double checked the streaming settings. I looked at the bit rate because I'm getting this camera ready to share access with anyone in the world for remote production. So once that was done, I connected it to a joystick controller so I could have PTZ control. I think that was shown here. And I was getting PTZ control of the camera so quickly and easily. Within just a moment, controlling the camera. Then I was going to update the firmware, but I didn't do that. What I did was I shared access with people from anywhere in the world by adding it to Hive. And that was probably shown in a later video, so I'll cut to this. But essentially, getting IP connections and setups are so easy now that I just want to go over some of the fundamentals and what this is going to unlock. So multiple computers can connect to each other nowadays, whether they're cameras, switchers, graphics workstations, displays. We can connect so many things together. It's very scalable and it's very flexible. It allows us to decentralize the situation where we're not having to be so reliant on a single control center now. We can overcome the distance limitations and make things so much more effective and cost effective by reducing the need for expensive dedicated hardware. Now, we've talked about the networking knowledge needed and the infrastructure, and I think you've got a basic idea of how this works. Now, I want to dig into some of the use cases here, and one of them being the ability from just a remote location to just jump into different studios. And you can see that this remote laptop is controlling 3 different studios. And in Hive, you'll notice that there's a drop-down menu in the top left where I can just jump between different studios. I'll guess to see if my buddy David Peltz has a studio he's okay with us popping into. Looks like his production studio is not on, but you can see here there's different studios that you can jump into very easily just with a click of a button. So I wanted to explain that, how you can go in and out of studios. The other thing here is that cameras can be edge devices. And in Studio One, both of those cameras, there's no computer in between here. There is just cameras acting as edge devices and connecting directly to the network. So something to consider. In Studio 2, with some of the older cameras that can't connect directly to the cloud, maybe they're 4 or 5 years old, a computer can connect them up to the cloud. So very flexible opportunities here. In this scenario, we're assuming that all of the cameras being deployed are just going straight to the cloud. We're connecting a microphone to these. Maybe we're connecting an audio mixer and doing everything remote. So you can set up a PTZ camera, associate it with your Hive Studio, with your cloud account, and just send it out, and it will just automatically, when it boots up, automatically connect to your cloud. So it's very good for remote production. And then the team collaboration allows you to have a producer in one location, a camera operator in another, and an audio mixer in another location, all controlling the remote studio. So it's very, very powerful stuff. And it does require a little bit of knowledge of the local area network, having the networking necessary, and then the wide area network having the bandwidth to accommodate all of these connections. Now, in this image right here, oh good, I have a bigger one here. This is an interesting one to consider because what we have here is we are using NDI Bridge. And NDI Bridge is a really great remote production software that can bridge multiple systems together. And you can see there's a router on both ends of this bridge. In the middle is the wide area network, and the NDI bridge is being used to connect between these two locations. And what the NDI bridge does is it makes it feel like all the NDI sources on one local area network are available on the other local area network. And this is one scenario where IP video really comes into play. Because now if you're using a video switcher, like we're showing vMix or Wirecast here, it will actually send that bidirectional camera control and tally light information. So tally lights are lights that will turn either green or red depending on whether the camera is in output or preview in your video switcher. And so now you can literally on the far end have communication for PTZ control, for video, for tally, all the way on a remote location. So whether you're doing this on LAN or on a remote location, it's pretty incredible what you can do over a single network. Now, the idea of an edge device is something that you're going to hear a lot about in remote production. Edge devices, the name comes about because it sits on the edge of the network, meaning it's on the network, but it really is meant to go from the local area network directly to the cloud. And PTZOptics cameras with Hive connectivity, we call it Hive linked, are edge devices when they do this. So what they're able to do is they're able to be deployed on a local area network. As soon as they connect to the internet, connect directly to the cloud so that you can remotely control them. So it's an edge device in that sense. And there's encoders that are edge devices that are meant to be managed in the cloud and managed remotely. So that's the idea of an edge device. You can see in the top here, this is the web interface of the camera, which we were looking at recently over here. In fact, this is the web interface for a KiloView decoder. But in this web interface for the camera, you would set it up one time in your web browser to link to your Hive Studio. And then every time after, when it reboots, it will automatically connect to the cloud for control. Now, another thing to understand is VPNs and firewalls. VPNs are virtual private networks that we talked about, and firewalls are used to block unauthorized access into your network. And in some cases, firewalls can block some of the things we're trying to do in our remote productions. And we'll need to work with an IT manager to make sure that we have authorized our specific devices to get through the firewall, because we are trying to get up to the cloud, right? We are trying to get access, and sometimes firewalls can get in the way. Now, edge devices are generally used to not have to worry about the firewall as much because they connect directly to the cloud. And so edge devices can generally get around firewalls and bypass the firewall issues that you may come up against. Now, we talked a little bit about static IP addresses versus DHCP addresses, but again, I just want to mention the reason why static IP addresses are so ideal for remote production environments is because we often find ourselves going into an IP device like the SuperJoy and telling it, hey, I want you to control this other IP address, right? This other device on the network, and you need to reliably know what those IP addresses are. And so that's why that is helpful to have the static IP addresses. Now, something to learn, this is again kind of the fundamentals here of IP video. On the public internet, we use something called DNS. Okay, and DNS is basically used to route I believe it's called dynamic name service, but essentially it allows you to when you type in www.google.com, it actually returns the IP address of the server that is hosting google.com. So it's a server in the cloud, right? And so that's what DNS does. Now, that's for the wide area network, right? Google.com routes that dynamic name to a server that's going to give you that website. MDNS is used on the local area network. And this is when somebody uses like PTZOptics.local to return the local IP address. So just a technology to be aware of. DNS to translate domain names to IP addresses for global access. MDNS to resolve host names with local networks that don't have a DNS server. Now, something to think about when we are compressing AV, we talked about this in the last video, but we may need to synchronize all of our AV streams, and that is done with NTP, Network Device, Network Time Protocol. And we'll go over NTP in a second here with a PTZ camera. You want all of your IP devices to be syncing up frame by frame their IP video with the same network time protocol. So on this PTZOptics camera as our example, we have it syncing with time.windows.com. And as long as all of your cameras are syncing the same network time protocol, all the video that's being sent over IP should be synchronized together. So if you're having an audiovisual sync issue, you may want to consider looking at your NTP settings. All right. Now, when we're bridging data between LANs, we often can use something like NDI Bridge, or we can use a remote access software like TeamViewer or Parsec, which is like a splash top kind of screen capture tool where you can transport in from the local area network. And you can even connect virtual private networks over the cloud using specialized video transport protocols. But hopefully this video gave you some idea of some of the IP fundamentals that you should be knowing about and reinforced some of the networking and internet connectivity basics and best practices. All right, our next video is going to go over Zoom and Zoom OSC, and Zoom has become so popular for remote production, so I'm excited to go over some of that remote production technology with Zoom, which also applies to many other video communication solutions like Microsoft Teams and Google Meet. So we'll do that in the next video.